Medicare for all, tuition-free public college, ensuring a Green New Deal for our future.
How do you pay for these?
We implement a carbon tax that's an additional amount of a large amount of revenue that we can have. I think that ICE is right there as a part of it. It has its extrajudicial nature is baked in to the structure of the agency, and that is why they're able to get away with black sites at our border. Upper middle class doesn't exist anymore in America.
That was socialist congressional candidate Ocasio-Cortez making dubious claims on the air. Now Barack Obama is backing her in a new wave of midterm endorsements from the President Obama. President Obama endorsing socialist Gillum of Florida and Hallquist as well. Let's bring in Republican strategist Ford O'Connell and liberal commentator Jason Nichols to take it on. Ford, here's the thing. Do liberals realize that what U.S. officials, even Democrats, are saying, that the U.S. has a lot of socialist policies already in place? Half of our health system is nationalized, that Obama bought his way with taxpayer money to very poor flat economic growth by doubling the nation's debt to $21 trillion. That sounds like socialism here.
Well, it absolutely does sound like socialism, but you have to understand for the last 15 years, the Democratic Party has been the party of free stuff, and they understand that that's the only way that they're going to get back to power. They don't care that these policies that Ocasio-Cortez is talking about, according to the Tax Policy Center, would add $40 trillion, to the debt over the next 10 years. At the end of the day, this is all about regaining power, and the reason why Barack Obama's endorsed her is because essentially he wants to have sway in the Democratic Party and the future of the party going forward.
Here's the thing. It's great to welcome you to the show, Jason. Would Cortez have gotten, say, the new NAFTA deal, or farmers, getting more, play into Canada with dairy and other sectors? Would she have gotten the higher auto worker pay in Mexico, or deals with South Korea or EU? President Trump is stacking up a lot of victories here. Go ahead.
Well, again, I don't think that Ocasio-Cortez has any plans of running for president anytime soon, so I don't necessarily think that's important. And as far as Mr. Obama,
wait a minute. Let me back up. Forgive me. I'm sorry. I understand your point about now I'm running for the president, but working in Congress, because Congress has not done a lot of what the president has accomplished already. Could she get Congress to get things like that done?
I think she would get a lot of things done on her agenda, which are things like Medicare for all and trying to get more people insured. We still have 12% of Americans who don't have health insurance. It costs us lots of money. I think those are some of her priorities. I think those are priorities that the President Obama and she have some congruence, and that's where his endorsement comes from.
All right, understood. Ford, hang on a second. But when yes, it's terrible that 12% of the population, whatever the estimate is, doesn't have health insurance. Doesn't mean they're not being treated. They do get, cared for in hospitals and clinics across the country.
Medicine.
But by the way, Democrats in California, Ford, rejected Medicare for all. Vermont Democrats rejected single payer because it would bankrupt their states. Go ahead.
Her policies have stated whether it's Medicare for all, guaranteed housing, guaranteed jobs, or free college would essentially wreck this country. And those policies never, ever in the history of the world with a country our size have ever worked. So I don't know why it's working at the ballot box. I don't know why it's receptive, but it's the way the Democratic Party is going in terms of trying to win elections.
Jason, we've had people from socialist countries like Venezuela on this show saying, why are Democrats pushing these failed redistributionist policies that didn't work in our country? The socialists don't even acknowledge the failure that is a socialist nightmare in Venezuela. Go ahead.
Again, I would totally agree with you that Venezuela has been a complete failure. I think that no one wants pure socialism. I think people want social democracy, which are things that you find in the Scandinavian model and in other countries around the world. But wait a second,
forgive me, but the Scandinavian models, those countries saying, whoa, we're not socialists, we're capitalists with big welfare systems, Ford, right?
That's exactly what they're saying, and the Democratic Party is basically conflating the two. To your point, Emac, you're absolutely right. It didn't work in the USSR. It didn't work in Cuba. It didn't work in Venezuela. They're misleading on exactly what's going on in those Scandinavian countries because essentially they have a lot of capitalistic tendencies. They just have a big welfare state.
Ford and Jason, you're going to be back with us shortly. Thank you so much for your insights there. First, the New York Times report saying Supreme Court.
Well, NBC, here's the biggest offense to me. They've been a co-conspirator in the destruction of Kavanaugh from my point of view. There was an anonymous letter received by Cory Gardner the senator from Colorado, with no return address, no information, just a letter accusing Brett Kavanaugh of assaulting somebody in a restaurant in 1998 in Colorado. Right. Corey hands it to the committee. Somebody on the Democratic side leaked that letter. It got on the NBC Nightly News. The fourth allegation. Do you think NBC would have done that if this had been a Democratic male nominee?
So a fourth anonymous accuser, that's Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, saying it's gotten so bad that he now feels NBC is a, quote, co-conspirator in the destruction of Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh over NBC's coverage of that anonymous complaint, alleging that Brett Kavanaugh supposedly physically assaulted a woman in 1998. Now, Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume saying this has been a really dark moment for the news business. Watch.
There was one that was out last night, which was recanted by the accuser, who said he made a terrible mistake, and it remained up on people's Twitter feeds, and CNN left it up, and so on. There has been a kind of I think saying there's been a deterioration of standards in the handling of this story is not sufficient. There's been a demolition of them. We're having the word corroboration tossed around for some. In the case of Christine Blasey Ford, an NBC White House correspondent was talking about that it had been corroborated, and it turned out it was simply her having told people the same time she told her therapist the same story. Corroborates nothing, but this is where we are, and I think it's been a dark moment for our business.
Take a check of the stock of NBC's parent company Comcast, closing the day in the green, up over 1%. Let's bring in the political power panel, Ford O'Connell and Jason Nichols. Jason, there's a danger here, Professor Alan Dershowitz points out, a new era of what he has coined the term sexual McCarthyism. Your response to that?
Well, I don't think it's sexual McCarthyism.
It is allegations without evidence. That accusations are tantamount to a conviction. That's a dangerous point for American society to be in. Go ahead.
Again, we're going to have to disagree, Liz. I believe that
you think this is okay to accuse anybody with the. How would you feel if somebody, forgive me, how would you feel, Jason, if somebody said, you, Jason, basically you assaulted somebody with no proof? How would you feel about that?
I would beg for an investigation, and that's what we've gotten.
All right.
So all I would want is for the truth to come out. I would want for as much evidence to come out as possible.
All right, but it's about the reporting. Forgive me, Jason.
That's exactly right.
Ford, it's about the standard in the past was you don't print anonymous allegations that are super negative and super charged unless you've got somebody on the record saying that there's proof for it. Go ahead, Ford.
Well, as a former reporter and a Northwestern graduate journalism person, let me be honest, you're absolutely right. It appears that NBC in particular is more interested in destroying Kavanaugh than following good journalism practices. But this is not the first time NBC's done this. Remember, this is the same network that sat on the Juanita Broaddrick interview during the Clinton impeachment hearings, but had no problem running with the Swetnick gang rape allegations that basically were unverifiable. So, I mean, you really have to question what's going on at NBC. They're clearly more interested in ratings and helping the Democrats than they are in actually following good journalism.
Jason, Ford's point is Juanita Broaddrick is saying the liberal media ignored Juanita Broaddrick, gave no credence to what she was saying, and she had people, she told what happened at that time, showed her bruises, and had people stepping forward saying, yes, we heard from Juanita Broaddrick at the time of her allegation. But why did the liberal media ignore Juanita Broaddrick at that time?
Well, again, I can't speak for the liberal media.
But is this politically?
Wait.
Is this politically opportunistic? Because Juanita Broaddrick, to this day, feels she's ignored.
I disagree that she's ignored. As a matter of fact, we saw President Trump put her out in the floor in 2000.
President Trump did, but yes, President Trump did. Jason, President Trump did. Juanita Broaddrick is saying the media covered that. Wait, forgive me, the media covered that. Juanita, let's be clear. Juanita Broaddrick is saying she's been consistently ignored by the liberal media before President Trump brought her to the debate. Go ahead. Final point.
Well, again, I think people have. I agree that Juanita Broaddrick has been done wrong for a long time. I don't think that has any bearing on what's going on right now.
Okay.
I think that we have a responsibility in the media to talk about these things, to vet them. I do agree, but at the same time,
That's the point. They're not being vetted. Ford,
but
go
again,
ahead.
The hypocrisy
affidavit
of
was
NBC
signed, so
between
you
these
can
two
see
examples
that.
is extremely telling, and frankly, they should be under the microscope.
Ford and Jason, thank you so much. We have to move on. My next guest
Thanks.
says no Supreme Court nominee.